So hey friends, welcome to this week's video. This week we're going to be looking at more IEMs, this one from Hidizs, and this is their MS1-Galaxy, I believe the name is. And I wanted to start off this video with just a normal recording from my phone so you guys could understand, because unlike a lot of IEMs, these ones come with a microphone, so we're obviously going to be doing some tests on that. They also gave me an adapter, which is a little bit of a DAC, so we'll also be testing that. But for now, we're going to start this review off just plain old simple, no DAC. Just listening to music. So let's hit the city a little bit. I got some errands to do, take you guys along with me, and let you know what I feel as I try these throughout the day.
She left you gray out painting colors. She made you stay like all the others. Clean cut, buttoned up, murdered you in cold blood. But I brought you back to life. Tattoos, who knew you were such a bad dude? Yeah, we're gonna be alright. Hey, they call it chaos, me, I call it.
Alright, first errand done. Let's talk about what I was listening to on the way here. So, Paramore's Ignorance was the one that kind of stuck out the most in terms of the playlist that I had going. It sounded really good, it was super impactful, all of the elements from the bass, the drums, super present in there. The thing that I would say is it's pretty balanced, especially to start off the song and then get into some of the verses. Definitely super balanced, pretty nice sounding. However, once you get to the front half of the chorus, when there's a little bit more high impact with the bass, it starts to take over a little bit, so the vocals do take a backseat. That's just the first thing I noticed with this track, that I'll have to see how it is going forward. Overall, though, the other thing I want to say is that the volume is super powerful, yes, even on app, and or DAC. So I'm literally at 50%, maybe a little bit under that for some songs too. So I don't think you're gonna have issues driving these because they're super loud just to start with. But let's continue on. Got some other stuff to drop off and pick up and get to. So let's do some more listening.
Alright, second errand done, getting some pants tailored for a wedding coming up soon. But I forgot to say that this microphone is here, and I've been using it ever since I've been out and about. But tell me how it sounds, I'm not sure, I'll check when I go home. But overall, next song that I want to look through is Yaz by Polyphia. And it sounds really, really good with all of the drums and all of the accoutrements and all those things with that. But I will say that the technical aspects somewhat get lost when they really speed it up. So again, there's a pretty decent balance between instruments, and since we don't have to worry so much about the vocals, it's a lot more balanced. You can hear all the instruments, pretty decent separation in the beginning parts, but once they start speeding up and start using a lot more technical fingering, that's when things kind of get a little bit muddy and it's not as crisp as I'd like it or as separated as I'd like it. It's not unpleasant by any means, but if you're a technical listener trying to understand all of the pickings and the strummings, you might be missing out on that. We got one more thing to do before we head back home, and we'll do one more song and then talk about it indoors instead of outside. So I had to get bubble tea because we tried to get to this place earlier, but it was all sold out and it was super long line. So getting a couple of things for Samika on the way home. But on the way I heard Yama Colors, which is awesome. Because there's no bass, I think it works out really well because of the fact that it's just a lot well balanced and the voices don't get overpowered. In fact, like, she sounds really intimate. It's actually a lot more intimate than I would expect. It's like she's singing like really close to me, which gives you the depth of her voice. However, I would be interested to see if like certain voices overpower when there isn't a lot of bass to complement it. So that's something I'll have to check later.
Again, I'm using the microphones from these headphones to tell me how they're noise canceling, because there's a ton of people around me and some music and all cafe noises, so tell me how they're holding up. But overall, I did like Yama with her more intimate sound on these headphones. But let's go into a call, because I got like 2 minutes before my meeting, and I'm going to be listening to people's voices for the next 3 hours. So
a guy has said to you, it's for research purposes and I'm being serious. It's okay to starve a little bit.
Oh, he's calling her fat.
Yeah. Long
It's
story
okay
short,
to starve a
it's
little
okay
bit.
to starve a little bit. You've told me how upset you are like 50 times and I've cared maybe twice. What are you looking at? Him.
All right, so 3 hours of meetings done. That was not fun. I can tell you that. There's definitely a lot that I could tell you about how people sound like, though, in terms of how their vocals are on these headphones, since I've had so much intimate time with them. But what I can say is it overall sounds nice. It makes people sound a little bit more boomy and a little bit more bassy, so it does give a little bit of more intimate feel, similar like we saw with Colors by Yama, and it just was very obvious, because like, even people that I'm used to hearing lighter kind of gotten a darker tone to them, which in some people that are really high pitched, it's kind of nice. So it's actually nice to hear them. For deeper voices, it rings forward a lot more. There were a couple clients there that have really deep voice, just standard out of the box. With these, I felt like I felt a floor where it kind of bottomed out the range of these headphones to an extent where it just sounded a little bit weird. It sounded like their voices were missing something, but they did sound a lot more deeper. So it's just something to keep in mind when you're trying to use these for a very long time, that people's voices will be altered. Some for the better, some for the worse, especially if you're big on podcasts or audiobooks where, you know, you're going to have a variable range of different guests, or you're going to have readers who have, you know, caricatures that they have to portray where the lower end voices may not have their full range there as a result of these headphones. If you're trying to use these for a long time, I've been using these all day. They're extremely comfortable, and I think it's because of this lightweight wire. I'll do some close-ups on these, but the wire is just very unencumbering because it is so light. The only thing that I will say is because it's light, it kind of flies around in the wind. So if you're outside, it will flap around on you. If you're inside, you don't really have that issue. It's super lightweight. The fit is very snug, and they're super comfortable. They're not too thin. They have a nice coating on them that is not abrasive on my skin. So overall, a very good presentation of comfort here. The silicone tips as well, they're not too protruding. They have a nice little sponge to them, so they fit in nicely, and I don't really feel them in there, so they're not going to be annoying. They don't seem to be building up wax, and it was super hot today. That's the reason why I'm in a tank top now. I was sweating like crazy, and these were still staying in. They're still staying snug, and nothing was really getting encumbered by me sweating extra. So from a comfort perspective, I think you guys should be super solid. I'm going to do a little bit more listening to music to relax. I think we need to talk about some other genres, because I did basically J-rock and just American rock. So I'm going to try to throw some other samples in here so we can get some other perspectives on how this might sound.
Can't believe I found you, baby. Come alive. Lost in you like we're dancing in moonlight. Wanna waste our time in the moonlight. Wrap me up all night in the moonlight. Wanna waste our time in the moonlight. Wrap me up all night in the moonlight.
All right, so as we listen to that a little bit more, I have plenty to say. But I do want to say, this freaking boba that we got from Zero, no. If you ever wanted to taste like sandy, just chunky boba, I guess this will be your vibe, but I'm not a big fan. I waited in line and all that stuff for this. So, no. Quick review, done. Anyway, back to the headphones. These guys are definitely warmer. They're definitely more bass tuned, and it's something you have to be cognizant of when you interact with people with more bass voices or more bass elements. So I tried this with Tyler, the Creator, See You Again, and obviously he's a super low voice and he goes through ranges of that. And very similar to what we talked about before, sometimes there's a bottoming out of his voice where you feel like there's more that could be had, and it affects the characteristics of his voice as a result. Surprisingly, with the song, his voice didn't overpower other instruments in the room. It was just that low end when he went to some of his lower ranges where you just notice that bottoming out. So overall tuning was good. It's just that characteristic. So I did Say So, but the acoustic version, which takes out sort of that low synth and that low bass that they use to drive some of the more emotional parts of the song. But this one's just PJ Morton and JoJo singing with some light instruments in the background. So I thought that this would shine a little bit more because of the lack of bass there. However, it actually rendered it really flat. So there wasn't a lot of layers. Like I couldn't discern the voices from each other, and I couldn't discern the instruments behind them. They were all just rendered like kind of at the same level. And as a result, it was hard to differentiate the different parts. They just rendered kind of in a blur together. So again, if you're trying to listen to this from an analytical perspective and really understand like where instruments are coming from, how people are plucking, levels and all that sort of stuff, you're probably not going to want to use these because it won't have that detail for you. It's more of a fun listen. And that's what I've noticed when listening to more tracks with this. For like popular song $1 Million Baby right now, that was fine. I was super expecting the bass to overpower that whole song, but because it's so vibey and it has like this like funk to it, it just helped with the overall enjoyment of the music. It just helped you get into a groove, you could dance to it, and you weren't really worried too much about the analytical parts of it because it's just like a fun song to dance to. And for some reason with this particular song, the bass elements were there, but it didn't overpower the vocals or the mids, so it was just a lot more enjoyable because nothing felt like it was getting shot out of the water. And then finally, I also did this with Feel It, I think, and his name is D4DVD, so his name's probably David. But this is a newer song that came out with the Invincible soundtrack. But this song was super dope. I liked how it had some ethereal parts, some lighter parts, and everything was really well balanced. But it was the same thing as like there was a bass line in it, but it's funky and it grooves, and it's just more of an energetic song. And I think that's where these headphones do a really good job, is when it's light and fun and energetic. Those kind of songs do very well. However, later this week, I'm gonna try it again, same tests, but with this DAC that they've given us. So hopefully give us a little bit better music performance, and hopefully it's not gonna boost the volume too much. Like I said before, these guys pump pretty hard, and with music, you only need like 50%. On a conference, you need like 20 to 30%. Like people's voices come in super loud. So if you're using this for conferencing, Teams, whatever you might do for work, be careful with the volume because it might smack you in the face. Hopefully this doesn't make it worse, but hopefully we'll get better results. But we'll see you in a couple of days when we test this. All right, so I'm gonna shoot this really quick before I head off to the Celtics game, but I am going to be testing out the SD1 DAC, and hopefully I'll get some better performance. Just for perspective, I usually have been using this random thing I got off of Amazon, USB-C to 3.5, pretty standard for most adapters. You got this floppy guy and it protrudes a lot. So it does its job, it doesn't really have issues with volume. However, it is kind of a nuisance, especially as it's dangling around. It can get caught on clothes and backpacks and all that sort of stuff. The approach that Hidizs has done is something that's a little bit more sleek, something that fits right into the body and it doesn't flop around. So it's pretty solid. It's right there in the USB and it doesn't have any additional wires while still amping your sounds a bit. And then if I put the headphone in, that's kind of how it is. So a little bit more seamless. If it's sticking out of your pocket, it's just a little bit less things to worry about and just a more solid connection in my perspective. So overall, from form factor, I love it. Now let's actually see how it performs as I walk to TD Garden.
like there's a lot of tracks around here. But what I noticed is that things are a lot more clean, a lot more controlled than when it was without the DAC. You'll probably do a little bit more critical listening, but one thing I do want to say is that the DAC does help with volume a little bit, so I'm only like 40% normally, but now there's so much noise and music going around at TD, like I had to bump it to 60, but I still have plenty of time to, or plenty of space to bump this so I can get some isolation. At 40% here, I usually get pretty decent isolation. At 60, 70, you're gonna have some space to isolate out, so it's also nice having that DAC. I'm hoping you guys can hear this. There's just a lot of stuff going on, but I'll catch up with you guys after the video. Well, that game didn't go as planned, and as a result, I got a little bit sloshy last night and had a slow day at work. However, I did use the DAC with the headphones, and I wanted to get a little bit more perception on how these sounded and see if the DAC performed any better. One thing I will say about these headphones, though, is I do wish it had a volume control, but it doesn't. It only has play, pause, and tracks for playback on your music. But you know, when I'm in conferences, I do kind of wish I had that adjustment there, but it doesn't. But what I will say is that it does boost volume tremendously on a laptop. So even with just these headphones, I'm usually at half, 40%. With the DAC adapter, I could only put my laptop at like 8% because that's like where it would still be palatable. If I went to like 10 or 20, my ears would be blasted out. So it does a crazy amount of volume adjustment with the DAC. So just be wary of that when using it with a computer and you have a little bit more granular control of your volume, that's going to be there. But as we mentioned before, without the DAC, we were seeing things where voices kind of bottomed out a little bit for deeper voices, and it was just a little bit more emphasized on the bass. The DAC actually does a better job about making things a little bit more well-rounded. And you know, I don't have scientific proof for any of this stuff, but basically listening through the various voices through calls and things like that, I didn't hear as much harshness as I did with just the headphones alone. So I'm not sure what that is doing, since the DAC is only supposed to be bringing things to an analog or digital source to an analog source and help with separation and stuff. I don't get how that helps with the range, technically, of what it does, but for some reason, through the DAC, it just sounds a lot more clean. It sounds a lot more pleasant. It's more well-rounded and less harsh. So overall, very good for calls. Will be really good for your podcast. Definitely use it with the DAC in that instance. But I need to get a workout in and kind of, you know, get past all this grossness that I feel. So I'm going to listen to a few different more tracks and then get to you guys with kind of overall perceptions of both the headphones and the DAC and all this sort of setup when we get back. For now, have fun listening to some music that I put out here so you guys can get some sense of what I'm listening to.
Every energy drink together to make the ultimate drink. First step was to buy every energy drink that I could find. I literally cleared out Walmart as well as many other stores, and it wasn't cheap.
You guys want to see what $382.63 of energy drinks looks like? Well, here it is.
The energy drink that I was most worried about is this one right here. Apparently it's 350% stronger than Red Bull. Next step was to mix them all with precision to make sure the drink was equally balanced. As I was pouring, I was also tasting them all, which wasn't the best idea.
Through using the DAC, I've seen a lot of benefits from it, outside the fact that it's a more solid connection and it's a little bit easier to pocket less intrusive and just easier to carry around. It also gives you a lot of benefits such as volume. We've seen that with the computer giving you a ton of granularity, and then on their phone just giving you a lot more power to drive things louder if you need some isolation. Just really good on the volume front, and again, it's going to be something that's going to be good for any headphone, not just its proprietary stuff. But as we move into the actual music itself, what we've seen with the DAC is that it still has characteristics that the original MS1 Galaxies have in terms of the heavy bass emphasis and the proximity in voices. However, it does do a better job about evening things out, making it a little bit more round. So it does have that heavy, warm feeling. However, it doesn't have any harshness, and it really takes out that bottoming out that certain singers have or certain instruments would have with just the headphones alone. So the DAC does make things a little bit more palatable across different genres and vocal ranges, which I really, really like. The other things I would say is that it does seem to bring vocals more forward, so they never get drowned out. So it's just a lot more pleasurable. Even like if I'm thinking non-musical, like podcasts, whatever, work, it just makes everything a little bit more well-rounded, a little bit less edgy, and just more pleasant. So definitely something that I think that you should use as a pair. However, you can pick these up separately. So they run currently on promotion for 15% off on Amazon. So you can get the DAC itself for, I think, around $39 of the promotion, and you can get the MS1s for about $19. However, I would recommend that you buy them together, because as much as I thought that the MS1s were comfortable and, you know, they did really well in certain genres, they're just not as flexible to me alone. However, using the DAC obviously gives you that versatility and a little bit less tuning needs or concerns across genres when you put them together. So I would suggest buying them together. On Amazon, if you put them together, you get around $62. However, if you buy this through Hidizs website directly, it's going to be around $53. Plus, there's going to be a coupon in the description so that you guys can get this for a little bit cheaper. So do I recommend them? Yes. However, I would rather you guys pick this up as a combo and enjoy your music that way. And plus, you'll have another DAC adapter that you can use for all your other IEMs. So definitely check them out. I recommend them. I have another device or two coming from them, so definitely stay tuned if you liked what you saw from them. But for now, that's the rest of the review. And if you guys have any questions, please leave them in the comments. If you could, please like, comment, subscribe, do all the things you normally do on a video that you like and love. And I'll see you guys very shortly. As always, appreciate you. Peace.